My name is Richard Furr, and I can say I am cloud hired.
That yes, come and join and get cloud hired. I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
Hey, Go Cloud Architect family. I'm Cloud Hired.
So I'm cloud hired, guys.
So I'll just say I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired thanks to Go Cloud Architects.
It worked for me, and now I'm cloud hired. Because of Google Architect program, I am cloud hired. See!
I am cloud hired. Thank you, Mike and the Glowcloud team.
Hello, everyone. How are you? My name is Michael Gibbs. I'm the founder and CEO of GoCloud Careers, and I'm here with Mark Milovanovic, who's our Chief Technology Officer, and we're here to help you build your technology career. Maybe your goal is to become a cloud architect, or a network architect, or a security architect, or an AI architect. Well, that's what we do around here. We help people get to their technology career goals. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Michael Gibbs. I've been an IT architect now, since over 25 years now. And I've held every IT architect role you can imagine: network architect, cloud architect, enterprise architect, business architect, and I absolutely love it. I've also spent a little more than 2 decades helping people just like you get their first architect job, get promoted in tech, negotiate big raises, and I want to help you have your absolute best technology career. Mark is here. And Mark is our Chief Technology Officer. Mark is a Cisco certified internet expert like me, who's a network architect. He's also a great cloud architect, and we're here to build your career with you. Before we begin, and I want you to ask us your questions, and we love to answer questions around here. The reason we come online is, let's face it, if you know where you're going, it's so easy to get there. You've got a map. If you don't know where you're going, you're going to be zigzagging back and forth all over the world, and you may never get to your goal. And quite frankly, I've seen some people that have been in tech for 20 years, always wanted to get to one point, and all they needed was just a little direction, a little guidance, and a little bit of training to fill in some gaps they need, and poof, they've gotten every job they want. So you don't have to learn by making mistakes. You can actually ask experts about how they built their career and how they've helped others, and you can get to your goal. So couple exciting things we have for you. Tomorrow, both Mark and I are going to get geeky with you, and we're going to have a free subnetting workshop. And we're all excited about it. You'll come. We'll talk about what is subnetting. We'll talk about how subnetting works, why you need it. Week after that, we've got a free BGP workshop. And in about 2 weeks, we've got some free AWS Advanced Networking coming from you, because the network is the foundation of everything. If the network doesn't work, nothing works. So come join us, sign up for the free networking workshops, and the link is in the description of the video. My team will pop it into the chat box of any platform you're on, LinkedIn, wherever you're at, YouTube. We're happy to have you. I also want to tell you that we're approaching the final days of the 50% off intro pricing off of our Generative AI Architect program. One of the most exciting programs you can possibly imagine right now. We who've gotten people hired at Amazon and Apple and Cisco and IBM and Microsoft and Google and Accenture, Deloitte, KPMG, Capgemini, Barclays Bank, JP Morgan Chase Bank, and all these other prestigious organizations through the world. That's our background, and we collaborated with David Lithicum, who was the Deloitte's ex-chief of cloud strategy. He's been working in AI architectures now for 30 plus years Together, David and Go Cloud Careers, we're working together to have the best AI architect program out there, a program that will literally change your lives. Come take advantage of the 50% off preview until tomorrow. After that, it's normal pricing. We're getting a lot of people signed up for this. Going to have a lot of people with some extremely exciting AI architecture careers. Last thing I want to tell you is on Thursday, we've got our absolutely free How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job. My team will pop that in the chat box as well. And we'll be on Zoom. We can talk. We can build your career. Nothing I like more than helping people get their first technology job. So take advantage of some of these free things. And we look forward to seeing you. So if you've got some questions, please ask them. Mark and I love helping people. Don't be shy. You can't help if you don't ask. So ask us your question. Mark, you want to say anything while we wait?
I just want to say it's going to be some exciting times coming up especially in this coming month of May. I know we're going to start off the last day, so to say, of April. I genuinely hope that everybody can join us. It's always fun to have engagement of the community, be able to give back, but also hear your concerns and see if we can iron out maybe some misconceptions that you've had in regards to maybe subnetting, maybe the BGP protocol. And then, of course, when we go into the weeds when it comes to AWS Advanced Networking, that's also going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have a lot of instructors join us to be able to fulfill whatever goals you have, if that may be able to learn the technology a little bit more, or to be able to prepare you to be able to potentially pass the certification if that's your goal as well. So again, exciting times coming up. We hope you all join us. And don't be shy, like Mike said, go ahead, ask us your questions. We'll do our very best to answer them. And we always enjoy you guys' feedback. All right. Looks like first question from Cloud Station. Mike, can you please discuss the role of artificial intelligence and machine learning in modern cloud architecture?
So, Cloud Station, let's look at what cloud architecture is. Not what's taught in the certification, but what cloud architecture is. Cloud architecture is really about designing systems to optimize business performance. And in cloud architecture, or any architecture, if we're doing real architecture, not engineering, it's all about learning the vision for the organization, understanding how that business operates, understanding what are their technology platforms, and designing new technology platforms to help that business operate the way we want it to be in the future. Creation of governance structures, assessing the organization's readiness for change and capabilities for change, etc. So let's face it, we architects are designing blueprints for organizations, and our tools to optimize our client are the technologies we have to use. Now, granted, we architects don't build them. We're not going to code it. We're not going to configure it. That's the job of the engineers. Thankfully, we get paid a lot of money and we don't have to get our hands dirty. It's a great job. But we don't have to troubleshoot it, code it, fix it. None of that. We're designing these systems. But we think about it. What tools do we have to optimize our client's business? We have business process re-engineering, which is not a tech tool, but we still have it and we still should use it. And then we have the various technology tools. They could be data, for example. And data could be used as an asset to help an organization. They can be used to improve processes, which the technology can improve processes. There could be ways that we could optimize customer service. There could be ways where we can help that organization make better inferences or predictions so they can make better bets on where to invest their money. And there's a whole host of things that we can do to optimize our clients' business performance. Now, let's face it. In today's world, artificial intelligence is the best new disruptive technology we have to work with. So there really won't be any kind of cloud architecture or data center architecture moving forward for most organizations that don't have a component of artificial intelligence. We're in this place now where organizations that figure out how to do AI and do it right are going to have extreme competitive advantage. And organizations that don't figure out how to do AI or do AI wrong because they don't understand how AI can impact the business, they're going to find themselves left in the dust. Kind of like what happened to Blockbuster Video and West Coast Video. The internet and the world went streaming, and they kept their stores open and kept charging their late fees, for example, and they're just gone. So AI is going to be part of every architecture. Now, the AI use cases will vary from business to business. An airline may use AI to determine when to purchase fuel option contracts. An airline may also use AI to fly the plane should anything happen to the pilots. The airlines could potentially also use AI in weather calculations, for example. A bank may use AI to trade. A bank may use AI to make recommendations to financial advisors that can make better predictions to their clients. But you see the point here is Cloud Station. AI is going to do a lot. And it's limited by our creativity. It's limited by the type of data the organization has and the quality of that data. And it's limited by the architects understanding the business. Because Cloud Station, the last thing we want to do is just throw a technology in there without understanding business. And you can see this. If you look at most cloud architectures, they're disasters. I mean, 70% of them do nothing for the business. If we look at what happened when the US government mandated electronic health records, medical errors prior to electronic health records were 98,000 a year, which is the 5th leading cause of death in the US. Then the government says, you must have electronic health records, and we'll pay you to get them, and we'll fine you if you don't. Fast forward a couple of years, and now medical errors are the 3rd leading cause of death, going up by a little more than 250%. Now, is it all the technology? Probably not, but it's a big component of it. So for really the key is AI is going to be part of everything, and we architects are at the center of it. We're the most strategic people involved in taking those organizations' needs and goals, aligning them with a technology solution to help those organizations be more successful. Mark, you want to add anything here?
Yeah, I was going to say that the beauty about AI, it does things that we naturally are not very predisposed to. That's a lot of the computational heavy mechanisms of it. We as humans, we like to be creative. We like to figure out how to solve problems, but the mundane things behind it, doing the number crunching, it's better left to a system that is designed to do that. Yeah. So that will impact everyone from the executive suite all the way down to the operations, service delivery team, everybody. And it frees everybody to do what they do best. And that is delivering a product and a solution to the customer based on their business, and then of course their technical needs. If we think about a business solution, what better to be able to have almost like a search engine on steroids, so to say, to be able to look at the data that our business has, if we train our AI system with clean data, to be able to extrapolate that and figure out exactly where might there be a gap that we can fill, and then go down the chain with the architects, with the engineers, and the rest of our team to be able to fit something that's going to solve a particular need. When we look at the actual engineering side of things, engineers are many times bogged down with the provisioning and the troubleshooting of a network or a systems, whichever it might be. That's going to free up these very intelligent people to be able to actually come up with solutions in conjunction with the architect so that they can tackle the business need. So I think it's going to be fantastic. I think right now a little bit it's overblown, the hype when it comes to AI, because AI has been around for a very long time, maybe not as integrated as there's a current push, but it's going to be a fantastic solution that eventually everyone from the least to the greatest is going to benefit from.
Yeah.
Wonderful question. Thank you, Cloud Station.
Great question, Cloud Station.
All right, from Cloud Doctor. Hi all, I've been here for a while now. How does your training differ from other training institutions? What do you do differently?
Cloud Doctor, pretty much we do everything differently, and I'll explain it. What other organizations do is they teach those elementary skills. The name of something and how to configure something, which is really technician skills. And there's nothing wrong with that. We need technicians to go build things. What we teach are the architect career skills and the highest paid skills. And that's what I love to do. So when others would just teach, here's how to configure something, which is a technician's job, we teach everything. And what goes into everything? It goes into professional development to be seen as an executive, which can raise your salary $100,000 more, at least, over the technician roles. It goes into the presentation skills, the sales skills, the executive skills, the business skills that are necessary to do the role. We cover not just how to build it, because anybody can do that. Honestly, that's a very low-paid skill. We teach how the technology works at the fundamental level and how the technologies get put together in a cohesive manner to optimize organization performance. And that's a skill that's easily $100,000 more a year than any of what our competitors teach, because they're teaching those low-value technician skills, and we're teaching these big skills. We also teach people how to interview, how to negotiate salaries, how to build their brands, and it's the comprehensiveness of it. Where others would teach a 20-hour certification course, we have 700-hour plus training programs. In addition to that, we do live training. And our live training isn't like everybody else, where yesterday somebody was nothing, they passed a certification today, and tomorrow they're your instructor. our instructors are people that have decades of experience. When it comes to networking, we actually have 3 Cisco certified internet expert instructors, for example. And together, our networking instructors have over 50 years. On the application architecture side, we have 2 application architects. Together, they have 50 plus years application architecture experience. On the business acumen side, we have 3 MBAs and 2 PhD business school professors teaching the business acumen side. On the architect side, you've got people like me who've been an architect for 25 years, or people like David Lithicum, who's been an architect for 35 years teaching the training. And the key is, we are not like a boot camp where you go in and you get out, and 16 weeks later, it's get the heck out of here. I took your money and I don't care what happened to you. Cloud Doctor people that come to us stay on our program until they're hired. So what we do is we make sure that anybody that wants to do the work and does the work should have the career of their dreams. And by doing so, we're really in a position to truly change lives. And when I speak to my students at the end of the program, they're like, yes, Mike, I got the job. Yes, I got a $150,000 raise over my last job, but my life has changed. The soft skills get me more respect. The leadership skills have other people look at me differently. The world came to me for a job because you taught us how, instead of me applying for jobs. So why did I do this, Cloud Doctor? And why did I come up with something crazy like this? What was in my head, just to let you know? Well, I've been in this tech world for 30 years now. Well, almost 30 years. I like to say 25. It makes me feel a little younger, but it's closer to 30. And when I went in, I wasted all this money on certification training. And it wasn't until my manager at one of the larger tech companies pulled me in the side in a boot camp, and he said, Mike, and we're going back, I think it was 2001. I was taking a boot camp for a certification, and my manager, it was hosted on site, and I fell asleep because it was boring me to death, like any other certification thing, just bore you to death, except for the CCA, you got to work for that one. My manager tapped me on the shoulder, dragged me on, and he said, Mike, he said, do you know the difference between being that $150,000 sales engineer you are right now compared to that $300,000 enterprise architect? I was like, tell me, I got to know. This is the most exciting thing I need to know. And my manager said, right now you're in tech. You've maximized what you can do in tech. There's no better you're ever going to be, no matter what you learn. He said, if you want a better job, it's about the impact you can make to your clients. I'm like, well, how to make a greater impact? And he said, Mike, it's about your business acumen, because if you understand business, you'll be able to understand your client's business and you'll be able to optimize it better. I'm like, oh, okay. And he said, Mike, it's about your ability to sell. I'm like, why the heck do I need to sell? And he said, Mike, it doesn't matter how good your designs are if you can't convince your clients to adopt them. Your PowerPoint slides go nowhere unless you learn how to sell. I'm like, okay. And then I said, Mike, you need to learn how to lead. I'm like, why do I need to learn how to lead? I'm a solutions architect. What is it I need? And he said, Mike, you're one person. He said, look, you're pretty technical, but nothing good's going to come out of one person. I need teams of 15 to 50, and I need somebody that can lead them. I'm like, okay, I'll learn to lead. And then he said, Mike, you give a good presentation, but you don't have that kind of executive presence. He said, you need executive presence. I said, all right, while we're at it, what else do I need to learn? He says, you need to learn how to be CXO relevant. He said, because the last time I saw you in a CEO's office, you were talking tech, not business, and that wasn't so pretty, Mike. And I said, okay. I said, so what do I do? And he said, Mike, I want you to go to business school. We'll help pay for it. And he said, I want you to take executive training, leadership training, sales training, emotional intelligence training, presentation training. And I did. My salary doubled within 18 months, just like he told me it would. And then I started teaching these skills to everyone else. And I watched their training. I took one of our students. He was working as a solution architect. He was earning $151. 6 months in our training program, he got a $409,000 job. Had a bunch of engineers earning $150. We retrain them to be architects, and they've got $300,000 jobs. So the impact we make, the skill we make, the amount of investment we make, and quite frankly, when you look at our program like our elite program, it took me 25 years and about $300,000 of education to develop that, and I'm not the only course creator. So I hope I answered your question there. It's quality, sophistication, the skills we teach. Others aren't willing to pay a $500,000 architect to train. We have a lot of $500,000 a year architects in our organization, and we do it because we love it. We do it because we love getting people hired, not for any other reason.
Mike mentioned the one specific word. It's comprehensive. Why is it comprehensive? look at a job, something that you're going to do. It's not single facet, meaning it's not just technology, but it's also not just business. It's all a compilation or a combination of different skill sets. So that's where the training has to go around, and that's what we try to focus on. But what I personally think sets us apart and what we do very different for others, we provide them with a skill set that we develop and we train them on that can take anyone. It doesn't matter if they're in their technician phase, if they're in the engineering phase, if they're in the design or architecture phase, and give them the ability to scale up their income. And that's the wonderful thing. For example, you could be a technician right now working on a help desk. If you learn just a little bit or just retain a little bit of the business acumen that's being taught in a program, it can almost be guaranteed, and I don't use that word lightly, but it can almost be guaranteed you will not be in that position for very long, because those skills allow you to transcend the initial requirements that much of the industry places on you, when you hear about the 5 to 6 and 7 years of experience you need, and help you to propel yourself forward. So that's why I think our training excels in being able to focus on the actual needed skills for different types of jobs, unlike others that are focused more on the certifications, which is not wrong. You need that, but it's a single-minded focus instead of a global view or kind of like a scaled back view of seeing what is needed to get you job ready.
Yeah.
Question from Big Jerry. Mike, I am curious about security. Are security practices the same on the cloud as in the data center, or is it completely different?
Big Jerry, we have to define cloud computing to answer your question. Get rid of all those marketing terms that are shoved into these silly certifications, and all cloud computing is running space in somebody else's data center. That's it. So instead of building a house like for your own staying, you could stay in a hotel room, which is a room inside somebody else's bigger house. That's all cloud computing is. So they're mostly the same. Now, Big Jerry 23, there are some subtle differences, and we'll talk about them. You have much less security in the cloud, the public cloud, than you do the data center. Now, here's why. In the data center or the private cloud, you own it. And that means you can do whatever you want. You need physical security in the data center or the public cloud. The cloud provider has their physical security, and you can't do anything about it. If it's your private cloud and you want to hire a bunch of retired Navy SEALs to be your physical security, you can do it. The cloud provider is going to have whatever they have. Now, in the data center, there's a lot more we can do in terms of network security. We can do admission control protocols like 802.1ax or EAP or all these things where you can determine who can get on. On the private data center, we can traffic police and shape our traffic, use some quality of service in case a worm were to get bogged down our systems. We can't do any of that on the public cloud. So we have less security on the public cloud. But we architect our demilitarized zones much the same way in the public cloud versus the private cloud. We're using the same types of security appliances, whether they be next generation firewalls, because we're not going to use the cloud provider stuff. We're going to use next generation firewalls. Same kinds of intrusion detection, intrusion prevention, same kind of architectures that we're doing there. So they're mostly the same. Encryption strategy in the data center, encryption strategy in the cloud. Same kind of thing. But there are some limitations and workarounds in the cloud, Big Jerry. And that's the key to remember. We can't do as much. I can't create a VLAN. I can't create a private VLAN in my data center. I can in my data center, but I can in the cloud. So in the way I could micro-segment my traffic in the data center, I can't do in the cloud. But I might be able to set up 500 different virtual private clouds and segregate or micro-segment my traffic that way, and then route in between them and firewall off in between them in the cloud. So yeah, we might do things like that. So because we have less network security in the traditional means, Big Jerry 23, we may have to get creative on the cloud. We may have to pretend that it's 1999 again or 2000 around the turn of the millennia. And we may have to, on the cloud, go back to some of those old school things and create various versions of micro-segmentation. And we can still use in the data center, if it really matters, we're going to use the big tools. Maybe we'll get a SIEM system from Cisco. Maybe we'll get some firewalls from Palo Alto. Maybe we'll get something else from another vendor. On the cloud, guess what? The cloud provider kind of has their Swiss Army knives tools. which they kind of made along with 18,000 million other art things they're made. Or if it matters, we're going to use the same enterprise tools. Maybe we get some SIEM from Cisco, for example, some next generation firewalls from Palo Alto. And then Big Jerry 23, we have to remember that in the data center, we've got physical devices. So somebody's going to rack and stack that physical firewall, and we can have some very high availability firewalls with multiple sets of power coming in and highly redundant and do some redundancies. In the cloud, we don't get to rack and stack our gear. We've got to go to a marketplace and put it on a virtual machine. So we'll need to be using some load balancers to kind of load balance between our virtual appliances for availability. But all in all, it's the same thing. You know, confidentiality, integrity, availability, it's the same kind of thing. We create privacy in much the same way. We have the same security appliances on the cloud. So all in all, it's pretty much the same. There are subtle differences, like I talked about, but they're very, very similar.
Yeah, I want to point out there's all shared practices when it comes to security across both. One is more virtualized when it comes to the actual cloud service providers. And generally speaking, you have the choice of more being heavy on the virtualization in your data center or less of being more hardware centric. But I think what really stands out between the two solutions is the threat landscape.
Yeah.
When we look at the cloud, it is tailored towards a large audience, right? Because the idea is to bring in customers so they can spend money. But because of that, the way that the cloud has to be secured is going to be slightly different than an actual on-data data center. And why is that? Because of predictability. You just don't always know what you will get in the cloud. And because of that, the way you implement the security and you design it is going to be a little wider than it is going to be on the data center side or just your personal network. You're going to know what comes in and out of your personal network, and you're able to restrict heavily on what the traffic flow is and what is allowed and what is not allowed. And that's why there's a huge talk within the last few years in regards to how do we actually secure cloud and then a multi-cloud solution. That's where they come with ideas such as eBPF, like Cisco's Hypershield, where they're trying to bring the security to travel across the workloads within the actual operating system kernel. So that's what they're trying to do. Other vendors try to bring solutions in a distributed firewall that is host-based and then travels with the workflow from one end of the backbone of a provider to the other one, so that they can have the multi-cloud or hybrid cloud solutions. So security is pervasive when it comes to this, but the way it is implemented because of the threat landscape that is different when it comes to a private cloud and a public cloud, it has to be done differently, especially because of virtualization as well. So it's exciting times in that. There's a lot of opportunities for cloud architects, enterprise architects, security architects, even the engineering side as well, to bring the people in so that they can work collaboratively to, I would say, minimize some of the differences now between the two solutions. But because of the inherent differences, I don't know about you, Mike, but I don't think they can ever close that gap when it comes to security between the two.
No.
So, but that's a fantastic question. I love that question, especially since that's a very, very recent trend that we see that they're focusing on the security, especially on the cloud side.
Got some questions, ask them. We want to help you.
Wonderful. From Kevin. Welcome back, Kevin. It says, hi, Mike. At what point of the new AI architect course can I change my LinkedIn profile to an AI architect?
So, Kevin, that's going to be inside of the program. Here's the worst thing you don't want to do. You don't want to put a job title like AI architect on your LinkedIn profile until you're ready to do the job. Because what will ultimately happen, especially with a company like ours, with all the branding work we do with as many media outlets as we're in, as soon as you put that down, you're going to get interviews. And if you go on an interview before you're ready, not only will they not hire you, not only will it beat down and shake your confidence, but when they interview you, they're going to put down, if you're not ready, do not hire and do not interview again for the future. And what happens is it's a small community. You go on a bunch of bad interviews before you're ready, and nobody's going to hire you. So there'll be a point in the course where you have a sufficient level of competency based upon the amount of work that you've done, that it'll pop up that you can say, I can put down that I'm an associate AI architect. But that's really the key. It's a protection based upon until you are ready. So, Kevin, we all learn at different paces. And Kevin, you've seen me tell some people that, yes, you're ready, or no, you are not ready. And why do I do that? I don't want people going on an interview where they're going to destroy their name, their brand, and a reputation if they don't have it. And I get some people that are so darn good, that are so ready to work, but they're afraid to go on an interview. I'm like, okay, you need to interview now. So there's that. But it'll be when you're ready. And, it's going to take, probably 6 months until you're ready to even be able to think about interviews for a new career like this. It could be sooner, it could be longer. It all depends upon the speed that you learn. And that's really the key. But it'll be when you're ready to interview for the job. Now you'll be able to use whatever dates that we come up with you when you sign up for the program, when you can put it down. But I wouldn't want a doctor hanging out something, a shingle that says, open for business, cardiologist, while they're still in medical school. When they're in that, when they've graduated medical school and they're in that internship and residency, if they put down physician, it's like, okay, yeah, because they're kind of a physician. They may be supervised, but they're still a physician. So we want to wait until you're skillful enough to do the job. For me, it's about being good. I've never been on an interview where I didn't get a job. And I've only accepted 5 jobs, but I got a lot more job offers. And at least half of the time, actually it's 40% of the time, I need to be accurate, I've actually accepted a better role than the one I interviewed for. But that's going in there, it's delivering a crushing interview, showing them that they can't live without you and that you're great. So it'll be when you're ready. And it'll be when you are there. And for me, it's all about being great at what you do. Kevin, and I know you're a really nice, young, smart person. You've got an incredibly bright future ahead of you. But you got to be ready. So Kevin, I know you. I know your background. You're doing myofascial release work and other myofascial technologies. And that's very important stuff. But on the first day somebody went to a massage program, for example, I wouldn't want to put down massage therapist. And let's say it's a 9-month massage therapy program or a 2-year. There's that point around 6 months in there where you're like, okay, I can feel this trigger point. I know what muscle this is. Well, that's a little tight over here. And you know what you're doing before you're ready to graduate, but you're getting close. That's when we have you put down the AI architect. So we know when you're going to get hired. Once you put that up, you're going to have the skills. So I hope that answered your question, Kevin.
A little bit of a follow-up question from me, Mike, to you when it comes to the AI architect. We've noticed that when it comes to cloud architecture, that there is quite a misconception, especially since we could consider the whole cloud training and certification to be somewhat in its infancy compared to a lot of other disciplines. Do you believe that it might be a safeguard for aspiring AI architects to let the market settle a little bit so that they really get a good understanding what it means to be an AI architect compared to perhaps something like an engineer, and then you go into an interview and feeling like they're asking me what is prompt engineering compared to actually worrying about how do I get the data, how do I get the actual AI system trained properly? What is your opinion on that?
You kind of, that's a good point, Mark. So you got to look at it from a couple places. When to jump in and when's the optimal time. Quite frankly, I think now is the optimal time, and I'll explain to you why. So I'm going to use networking. When I went into networking, nobody wanted to learn networking. And that's one of the reasons I chose it. It was the infancy days. People were like, learn the code, learn the code, learn the code. And I'm like, why would I learn the code? Everybody knows how to code. They're teaching at colleges. And if you know what everybody else knows, it's not the most valuable skill. When I picked networking back in 1996, and I got serious about it around 2000 when I took my first networking job, I looked at the market, I looked at the demand, and I thought about it and said, how is the internet going to change the world? And while everybody was focusing on web development and application development, I said, okay, that's going to be a dime a dozen. There's going to be millions of these people spread throughout the world. Nobody's learning networking. And then I looked at the supply and demand curve. Then I looked at the salaries that were related to networking. And I had a job paying me $100 an hour back in 2000 in networking. Now, I was working 60 hours a week. So to put it in context, that was $6,000 a week, which was a little over $300,000 a year. And I picked that because I knew that I love networking and nobody was learning it. So if we wait for the market to become mature, the salaries are going to come down, and they're going to come down a lot. The architects we train now probably have a window of $500,000 to $1 million a year jobs after they have about a year of experience for about 3 to 5 years. And then after that, they'll still have a $300,000-$400,000 job as an architect, but it's not going to be that $500,000 to $1 million. Right now, we're in that world of extreme urgency to hire, and literally no supply. And everything out there that the vendors are trying to teach that are doing for free is the junior level technician skills. And why are the vendors training junior level technician skills? Because they want to be able to say, use my AI, use my AI. I got 1,000,001 certified people, and they're cheap because they're technicians, not architects or precision engineers or the such. So, right out there, I think it's the best time to learn AI. I haven't been this excited about any technology since the internet. And, it wasn't normal to take a medical professional like me practicing internal medicine to say, I'm going to become a network architect and I'm going to go take this CCIE exam. And I did it. And in those days, there was no training for it. There was nothing. You worked at a gold partner, you went to Cisco, they gave you a couple of things, you rad labs. I rented a rack from CC Boot Camp for $200 in those days, every Saturday and Sunday. And I plunked down $40,000 that I didn't have. I borrowed like $20,000 from my brother-in-law. I took a personal line of credit. I maxed out a credit card because I was going to pass the CCIE. And when I did, because I was one of the first, my number 7417, and they started counting at 1028 because it was 2 to the 10th power, and that's how geeky they were, that it was like, look what it did for me. So right now, I think it is the best time because there's a huge demand. There's not a business out there that's saying we don't need AI and we don't need to leverage AI for generative AI for competitive advantage. At the big business level will be architects work, and there's nobody that can do it. You got the knowledge stuck in a couple of people's heads, like David. I've got some knowledge with the AI systems I worked on back in 2000 and such, but there's almost nobody. And anybody that says they're an AI architect, you ask them a couple of questions about AI, and you can see instantly they may know how to code in Python or R, but they know absolutely zero about AI. And all they really know about is, should I stick it on a TPU, a GPU, a CPU, or an ASIC? But they don't understand the use cases. They don't understand the algorithms. They don't understand the data and the data hygiene. They don't understand the structure, the design. So now's about as most exciting time I've ever seen. It's a good question, Mark.
Yeah, and that explains also, and I hope for everybody listening and eventually watching the recording, the timing of the program, why it was released at this point to get people a head start. Because it's something you and I, we always discuss, right? Is the fact that technology moves at such a rate that trying to keep up with every minute thing becomes difficult. But if you can jump ahead of the line when it comes to something as, what's the word I'm looking for? Disruptive. As AI technology, that's really where you can make a name and you can make a career for yourself if you have the timing right. So thank you very much for clarifying that. I think everybody enjoyed that as well.
Thanks, Mark. And if you learn it right and get those fundamentals right and truly understand how everything works the way we teach it, as new technologies come, it's just minor increments. It's very different than if you learn the how-to. You'll never learn the why. You'll never learn how things work. And then you'll never be able to be caught up with new things as they change.
Yep. Fantastic. All right. Thanks for the questioning, Kevin. Hope that helped a little bit, the explanation of it as well. From Simon, what is the difference between a cloud architect's role in a managed service provider and a system integrator?
There is no difference. In any one of these environments, what are you going to do? You're going to ask the client about their business goals. You're going to ask them about their pain points. You're going to ask them about their strategy. There, then, if you're doing your job for real, not a fake architect, but a real architect, you're going to ask them about the business processes, how that business operates, and you're going to try to figure out how you want that business to operate in the future based upon those business goals. In any of these roles, you're going to be evaluating the organization's current technology and determining if that technology will get them to their goals in the future. If not, you need to create a gap analysis between what they have and where you want them to go. And then you're going to have to recreate a design. Now, when you create that design, you're going to have to evaluate all the trade-offs. Because if you use this tech, it will help you here, but hurt you here. If you use this strategy, it will help here versus here. So you're going to have to do that. Then you're going to document it up. You can present that to key stakeholders. You're going to bring in the various vendors that are going to help you. And whether you're at AWS or whether you're a managed service provider or integrator, you're not going to be making all those technologies. You're going to be bringing in all these vendors. You're going to document it. You're going to present it back to the customer. You're going to help sell it back to the customer, help negotiate the deal to the customer. And as soon as it's time to be built, you're going to go off to a new client. There is no difference in the roles between these organizations. It's going to be, that's really what we're talking about.
Yeah. What I really enjoyed about the managed service provider domain is that you have access to a huge use case of technology, the way it's implemented, because instead of just working for one particular enterprise and trying to see how the technology can improve them, this digital transformation, a managed service provider may have thousands, if not millions of customers. So the diversity of the way that you can find to apply the technology to really help a customer base is going to be drastically increased. But like Mike mentioned too, that the actual fundamental process doesn't change. But if you were looking to improve your acumen, both technical and business, and be able to do that at record time, managed service provider is always going to be fantastic, or something like such a value-added reseller that's going to have a larger pool of customers. So that's something you might want to keep a lookout for. Great question, Simon. Thank you for that. From Cloud Doctor, how long will it take me to transition from my current job to a cloud architect career? I do have a regular 8 to 5 job, assuming I can study 2 to 3 hours per night.
So, Cloud Doctor, it's going to be dependent upon your training and how fast you learn. If you were to try to do it on your own, I know people that we've retrained that have spent 3 to 5 years on their own and are no closer because they didn't go there. If you have the right training, I would say typically eight months to a year, because that's what we're typically seeing when we train people. And the reason I say 8 months to a year with the great training is you need somebody to build the plan of what you need to learn. And you need somebody to make sure that you're learning only what you need versus what you don't need. For example, if you're learning Python and you spend the next year on it, it's not going to help you even 1% in getting your architect job because we don't code Python. If you're learning DevOps for the next year, it's not going to help you 1%. If you're learning SysOps or maintenance or Linux administration, it won't help you at all. So Cloud Doctor, I've got people that have 15, 20 years of cloud engineering experience that want to be an architect, and they come to us and it takes them 8 months to a year because it's a brand new skill. They're going from, instead of building, they have to learn design. And it doesn't matter how much experience you have building. It does not teach you design. It doesn't. And that's why nobody asks construction workers to design shopping malls or bridges, because it's a different skill. Now, let's say you're in the right training. I typically say 8 to 12 months. But a lot of that's going to be developed on the following. How fast do you learn? I can pick up a book and read it in 3 hours and remember 80% of it. I'm lucky that way. I know other people that it will take 12 hours to read that book. So I can go through that book 4 times faster. Now, my wife learned Spanish in 10 days because her translators couldn't understand her thoughts. And when I heard her in her office speaking to people in Spanish, it was practically overnight because she learns fast. She could probably get through my program in 2 months, but she doesn't love tech. She likes internal medicine and cardiology, so that's where she stays. But I'd say 8 to 12 months inside of our training program, but it's different. If you're in a role where you've been in sales, for example, it's going to be easier for you. And there was this fine young man, he was an intern of ours as we started the company, and he lost his job. He was living in England, and he said, Mike, I want to be a solutions architect. And I said, well, you're in sales. You know how to talk to people. You know how to get to the heart of the issue. You know how to ask questions. You know how to build relationships with people. Now I just got to teach you the tech. Within 6 months, he was working for AWS. And Al Legister is another student of ours, an example. He worked for Kimberly-Clark selling consumer products. Kimberly-Clark makes things like paper towels and tissues and things like that. He took our program. About 10 months later, he was working at Deloitte as a senior solution architect. I've also had somebody like Harshal, really great cloud engineer, but he was so engineering focused, it took him a year to transition him over to become a cloud architect because he was focused on the tech. He had the best hands-on skills you'll ever meet in those 10 years as a cloud engineer. This guy was a rocket scientist. Pretty sure he had 2 master's degrees in computing. One was in what do you call it, computer engineering, and one was some other computer science thing. The guy was highly educated, but it was all engineering. And it took him a long time to forget engineering, just think like an architect. But I'd say 6 to 12 months is what we're seeing average inside of our training program for someone to get hired. But like I said, we all learn differently. And that's why we let people stay on our program until they're hired instead of kicking them out at an arbitrary time, because we all learn differently. If you wanted to teach me how to use a hammer and a screwdriver, I'm telling you, to put a bookcase together, 2 years later, I'm going to be on my 80th bookcase that I ordered from Amazon, and they're going to be chipped and holes and falling apart. I don't know how to do things with my hands very well, but I can plan and design systems with my mind very well, so I learned architecture almost every night. I hope I answered that. Mark, maybe we have you mute your camera, shut it down, and then restart it, because it looks like you're a little fuzzy, and maybe we've got a little network backbone issue that might just get clear up if you do that. I'm not sure if it'll work, but it might work. A little better.
Did that clear up? Cleared it
Yeah.
up? Okay.
Not great.
Fantastic.
We we need to get you a backup internet service provider.
I'll start talking to Comcast and see if they can improve their actual service in the middle of the day.
Yeah, I'm curious what your latency is, what your jitter is today, and how much packet loss you have on your line. Time to get geeky. Go figure this out.
Let's take a look. All right, let's go with the next question while I'm running the test. All right, from Simon. Back to the fundamentals is important. What are they, and how should they be maintained both before and after hiring?
Well, let's talk about fundamentals. If they're the elements to do your job, every day when you do your job, you're going to maintain them for the most part. I mean, fundamentals, I learned how to practice medicine. It was all foreign to me. And then when I started practicing internal medicine, it was every day. I got to use it and reinforce it. You don't forget what you use. So what are they? Now, for the cloud architect, they're a combination of business skills and tech skills. Now, Simon, there are more business skills than technical skills, which is why if you wanted to train to be an architect on your own, it wouldn't surprise me if you did what I did and had a $300,000 education, or Alonzo who's got a $150,000 MBA, because there's so many of these skills are expensive to learn. We teach them, and just because I don't need to work, I was retired at 34, we basically charge our cost, and it's basically 2 days pay for the average graduate to learn these. But let's go over them. In order to understand the role, if our point is companies hire us to optimize their business performance, the first thing you need is business skills. I'd say 50% of the masters in business administration level, we teach them all. But if you don't understand business, you can't do architecture, because you can't optimize something that you don't understand. The next set of things are good communication skills, because we're going to have to elicit the information from our clients. We're going to have to find out what business problems they need solved. Now, we're also going to have to build teams. We're going to have to lead teams, and we're going to have to communicate our need to various team members and various vendors. So in order to do that, you're going to need stellar communication skills. So if you're with us, you're going to be taught them. If not, make sure you take some communication skills training. Now, the next thing is nobody designs an architecture by themselves. Nobody. In every architecture, and you can ask David Lithicum this or me, we build a team of 5 to 50 people. And it could take 6 months to get to the requirements. So we've got to lead a team of 5 to 50 people for 6 months. So if you're with us, you'll learn them. If not, go to business school, get an MBA, learn your business, learn your leadership skills, and go take some leadership training like I had to do after my MBA. Now, the next is you're going to have to sell the solution with the account manager to the client. So if you're with us, great, we'll teach you how to sell. And if not, go get some sales skills training. Now, you're going to have to have something called executive presence. Now, sadly, it took me a long time with a lot of executive coaches and probably $20,000, $30,000 of executive presence training. But executive presence is the ability to walk in the room, command the room, and be seen as the leader. So you're going to need that. Now, after this, you're going to have to manage a lot of stakeholders and manage a lot of vendors. You're going to need that. You're going to be facilitating meetings. So you're going to need some strong meeting facilitation skills. Of course, we teach these things. Now, when you get that, and you're going to have to give presentations. You're going to have to give presentations to win the interview, and you're going to be giving constant presentations. So as long as you got presentation skills training, we teach it, great. If not, go out there, speak easy for a couple of days, a couple $1,000. They'll give you some presentation skills that I can highly recommend. Now, beyond that, you're going to have some really good writing skills, because you're going to be writing thought leadership documents, responding to RFIs, RFPs, RFQs. Again, you can't learn this by building stuff. This is architecture. Now, that's your business skills, and this is 50 to 80% of the job. And if you had every tech skill but lacked this, you're still not hireable, and that's why I started it. Now, let's go to the technical skills. You need network and data center design skills. Why? Well, first, 98% of organizations are multi-cloud, And that means in order to make multi-cloud work, you have to understand the network and the data center. So on the networking side, we've got things like VLANs, VLAN tagging, VLAN trunking. We've got things like spanning tree and rapid spanning tree and link aggregation groups. We've got IP addressing and subnetting and supernetting. We've got routing protocols such as BGP that are absolutely critical for the architect. Now, those are your networking kind of components. When we get into the data center components, we need data center knowledge, such as servers and server virtualization and container orchestration, storage area networks like block storage, object storage, file storage. We need to understand how to work around the weaknesses of things like block storage because it's incredibly slow even though I don't care what they tell you in a certification, it's very slow compared to the server storage. Now, then we need to understand databases and when are we going to use a relational database versus a NoSQL database versus a data warehouse. We have to understand about taking information from one database and another, and whether that be an ELT tool or an ETL tool or some mapping and reduction with, say, a Python Spark script, we need to understand. Probably should understand some big data frameworks such as Hadoop. We need to understand queuing and messaging systems like Apache Kafka. We need to have a good understanding of security and security systems such as firewalls, IDS, IPS systems, VPN concentrators. And then we need to have a very good understanding of the business applications we'll be using. When should we bring in unified communications? When should we bring in some AI? When should we bring in a CRM system? And all that goes together for us to be able to evaluate an organization's needs, figure out what they have and what their goals are. And you'll be able to get there. So hope that answers your question.
And before we move on, how's it looking, Mike? Better?
Nope. You
Still
look like
not
you're fuzzy in a snowstorm.
Okay, we'll have to address it a little bit later. Let's move on to the next question.
We get you to log off or mute your camera? Let's try to, under the settings thing, let's take you from maybe 1080p to 720p. And I think that'll help us get rid of some of our packet loss issues.
I'll tell you what, I'll let you lead for a moment. I'll be back in a couple of minutes.
Sounds good. Okay, Dingleman, let's get to your question. When is the CISSP bootcamp? So in the end of the May, we're going to have an AWS Advanced Networking. I may have something special for you guys, some free training in June. So if you're not a subscriber, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to be notified. And most likely in July, we'll do a CISSP bootcamp. I've been putting it together for a while. I've got an incredible amount of content to this. The CISSP is my favorite intro to cybersecurity certification out there. It covers a wide variety of intro-level concepts, and it talks about things that are there. So Brandon Bowman, yes, I'm running a CISSP bootcamp. I put together all 1,600 slides for it. We're going to do that absolutely free, and it's coming up soon. It's my favorite intro to security certification. It's one that I did many years ago. I feel like it's fairly comprehensive, and it covers every aspect of security, from why you need a security policy to the types of threats that exist, to quantifying the types of threats that are out there, to being able to think about the protections you would use for the various form of threats that are out there, to think about the mismitigation strategies, and then think about security holistically, whether it be network security, whether it be physical security, whether it be application level security, and everywhere in between it. So yes, I'm going to do a free CISSP bootcamp that I'm pretty excited about. It's one of my more favorite certifications that I actually like. So, you know, it's more managerial level, so it's typically very good for us. And you don't really need experience to take the exam. I mean, here's what it is. To actually list CISSP on your resume exactly as CISSP, you're supposed to have 5 years experience. But anybody can take the exam, and then they become a CISSP-associate until they get their 5 years experience. But 100% of hiring managers out there know what it means. They know the person actually passed it. And it's my favorite intro to security certification out there. And it's managerial level, now, which is exactly what I like, because we deal with a lot of architects, and we're an architecture-focused channel and an architecture-focused company. We architects are never going to touch the tech. We're not going to be setting up a firewall rule or any of these other things. So that's why I like it. It gets people thinking about it. Not enough to be a cybersecurity architect by any stretch of the imagination, but a good general intro level of good security is what I see the CISSP as. Mike, Is having a business a good experience to become a cloud architect, even if the business failed? Well, one, we're architects, we're supposed to be strategic advisors, and we can help a business. If we don't know how to make the business successful, we're probably not going to be the best advisors unless we learn from someone else who knows business. I mean, imagine the doctor that killed every patient that said, I'm here to help you. Probably not the best doctor that you want to go to. Now, Juan, I know where you're training. I know that you're getting good business acumen, and it'll be there. What I will say is it will have you thinking like the business owner. And in the publicly traded companies, for example, we don't get to deal with the owner per se, but there's typically a C-suite. And who's ever running the business has to think about ongoing revenue. They have about the personnel staff. They think about the strategy of the business 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 9 months from here, 20 years from now. They think about what the competitive landscape needs to look like. They think about their competitive differentiators between them and their competition. They think about how they're going to obtain new clients. So, a lot of those things that you learn might actually be there. Although most people that worked in a failed business probably didn't know how to be strategic and how to analyze the market and how to take care of these things. So I kind of hope that answered your question there, Juan. Experience of doing it right is great experience. Experience of doing it wrong is kind of learning out how to do it the wrong way. Now, you can learn from mistakes, but until you've done it right, or until you've seen it done right, you don't know if it's done right. And, if you had a doctor that killed 1,000 people, I have no confidence that the 1,001 is going to be better. If I had a physician that was killing people because they were bad at what they did, prescribing the wrong medications, doing the wrong surgery, and doing the surgery incorrectly, I'd send them back to medical school to start from scratch before I'd want to have them working on patients. So I hope I answered your question there.
All right, let's get to the next one. From Visual Multimedia, Solutions Architect versus NetSec Engineer. Which do you think is better suited for a beginner in cloud?
Well, what do you want to do? So, NetSec Engineer is going to be a lot harder to learn than a cloud architect or a solution architect. It is. And it's going to pay half of what a solution architect would be. But the question is, what do you want to do? There is no place to start. Where you start is where you're trained. When I started 20 years ago, people told me this nonsense. They said, you got to start at help desk, Mike, or be a sysadmin or a network admin, because you can't be an engineer or an architect. And I laughed at them. And I took my first job as a senior engineer, and within 6 months later, I was a lead architect. And I was a principal architect 2 years later. So it really depends on what you want to do and what your training is. Now, Visuals Multimedia, I would recommend a cloud architect, not a solutions architect, and I'll tell you the difference. The cloud architect creates a solution for an end-to-end solution for a client, inclusive of all their clouds, all their data centers, and the reality, because 98% of organizations use more than one cloud. So if you look at the cloud architect as someone that designs, presents, and sells a cloud or a multi-cloud solution. Now, what's a solution architect? A solution architect who works for a single company that designs, presents, and sells a single company solution. So if I'm a real business, I have cloud architects. I don't need to hire solution architects. Amazon hires solution architects to design and present and sell Amazon solutions. NVIDIA hires solutions architects to design, present, and sell NVIDIA solutions. Cisco hires solutions architects to design, present, and sell Cisco solutions. But guess what? The reality is there's never all Cisco. There's never all NVIDIA. There's never all AWS. It's going to be a conglomeration of things. So if you focus on becoming a cloud architect, you can easily do a solutions architect job. And many of the people I train as cloud architects go off to work at Microsoft or Amazon or Google or solutions architects. That's not a problem. But if you understand the technology, you can work anywhere. If you only know one vendor, your opportunities are going to be very limited. And it's worse than that, because if you know everything in the technology, you're seen as a trusted advisor. If you only know AWS, you're like a hammer in search of a nail. AWS, I got to stick AWS here. I got to stick AWS here. Look, AWS, this is great, like the whack-a-mole game. I don't have any need for anybody to ever come into me and only know one vendor stuff. I have no purpose for these people. Now, I tell you where Visuals Multimedia, I do work with the solutions architects. Let's say I'm a cloud architect designing a solution for a client. It's not going to be all AWS, I promise you, if it matters for most 98% of my clients. It's not going to be all AWS and Azure. It's going to be a hybrid multi-cloud, which is the majority, 98% of organizations. Now, if I'm the architect, I might call a solution architect over at AWS and ask them AWS specific stuff about just AWS. I might call that Azure Solutions Architect that's got some extra insights into Azure. I might call that Google Solutions Architect for insights into Google, and the Nutanix Solutions Architect, but I'm the bigger architect as the cloud architect, and I'm going to put those pieces together. But in general, I would recommend architecture careers versus engineering careers. Architecture careers because they're human, and we have to talk to people. And because it's about relationship development and leadership, AI just gives us more jobs as architects because AI is a new demand for our services. NetSec engineer or any of these back-end engineering positions, I can use AI right now and write a Python script. I can write a Terraform script. I can write a Bash shell script. I can go out there and I can create a configuration template for a Cisco router or for a, a Palo Alto firewall. And I can do that all in AI. And I don't want a career like engineering in today's world that can be done partially by AI. So, there's good and bad of being an architect versus an engineer. As an architect, you'll earn more, you'll have more career potential, and you'll get more respect as an engineer. But if you love being an engineer and you want to sit behind a desk all day and type on the computer and that's your idea of fun, and I have a friend, Moses, that's his idea of fun. I like going out there and talking to people and meeting people and entertaining clients and solving the business problems. He loves their tech. Make sure, if you do that you're the best of the best. Make sure you've got some good business skills, communication skills, and leadership skills. And that way, if and when there's layoffs in the engineering world, because there's going to be lots of engineering layoffs, I project, you can move over to the architectural roles more easily, or you can move into sales engineers, because you have to look at it. Architects generate revenue. If I'm an architect for AWS, I design, present, and sell an AWS solution. I bring in money. Those back-end engineers cost the business money and they don't generate any money. So in tough economic times, they hire salespeople, and architects are under the sales, and they lay off post-sales expense people, which are engineers. I hope I answered your question there.
And I'll add this. You got to understand something about the engineering world. It is a deep dive into the technologies that drive a solution. And because of that, there's generally going to be a much longer lead on to being competent at that type of job. When it comes to a solution architect, you got to think broad. Any architect, it's more broad in a sense of the technology and their application to it. So if a beginner was to start, first figure out what you want to do. Just like Mike said, that's the first thing you want to do. If you're always thinking, I want to have the most opportunities available, I want to have the most flexibility, then you got to think of it, which is going to lock me down more? Is it going to be the engineering side, or if it's going to be the architect side? I know what Mike's opinion is, and I think Mike knows what I'm leaning towards. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you, being both, always architecture, because it allows you the most flexibility and the most opportunities. So for a beginner, and I know this sounds a little counterintuitive because it's quite different out there in the wild, wild west, as we call it, the internet, because you have these vendors pushing the certifications and trying to get you locked into being an engineer. But architecture is going to be, for most beginners, the best route they can go. Because it's going to be a lot easier if you ever decide, if there's something about architecture that you just don't enjoy. We always talk about that you have to be social, you have to want to work with people, you want to drive business success from a customer-centric role. If that doesn't fit with you eventually, then engineering might be a good tool, or you might scale down and just work on being maybe a post or pre-sale engineer. And that's going to get you a little bit closer to the architect role, but not be as business orientated as an actual architecture role.
Absolutely.
So you have quite a few options, but bar none, architecture, definitely.
If you got some questions, ask us. We want to help you build your career.
From Cloud Doctor, you say the program is self-paced. How do I, as a newbie, get assistance and knowledge needed to complete the training?
So Cloud Doctor, let's talk about the structure. We have live training 3 days per week in class on Zoom. So in class, you can ask questions. because it's not real training if you can't ask questions to the staff. Now, in addition to the 3 live classes per week, we typically do 1 or 2 days of office hours per week. And what do I mean by office hours? It's a chance for you to go in there and ask questions on the program. We also have a community that is several thousand members strong where people assist each other. So here's the way you could look at it. You're in class 3 days a week. 1 or 2 additional days a week, you can ask people questions live from our staff, and the rest of the time you can ask our community. Now, in between our live classes, you can watch any previous class we've ever taught, plus go through our program, which is now over 700 hours that you can literally go through the back catalog and all the training. And there'll be something for you to do. There'll be a video that's going to, like a tell me about yourself video where we learn about you, but it's also the first question on every job interview 90% of the time. So you'll be doing a video preparation for that to prepare you for your first interview. You'll turn in a project, an architecture project, and the team will give you feedback on it. So there's never going to be a time when you're lost. You're going to come to class and ask questions. You're going to have office hours. You can ask questions. You can ask them via Slack. We break you into teams. You work with your teams. You do architectural designs. So they're always going to be there. We worked very hard to make sure that nobody's lost. And we've got a staff all over the world. Our team speaks every language you could possibly imagine. I can tell you just on our team, I go English and Greek. Mark does German and English. I think, Mark, you got another language in there too?
I do. Serbian, Croatian, Yugoslavian.
Serbian, Croatian. Mm-hmm. In addition to German and English, we've got Alonzo, who's got some Japanese. We've got Chow, who speaks fluent Vietnamese. We've got Tyrone, who speaks Afrikaans in addition to English. We've got Leo, who speaks Spanish and Portuguese. I don't know if Eddie speaks French. Eddie may speak French over there in Cameroon. I know he's in the English side of Cameroon. And I'm missing a couple more languages that our team speaks right now. It's driving me batty. I can't think of it right now on the fly. And then we've got some instructors that speak Arabic. I know we've got that with Mark Muhammad as an instructor. And I think we speak a few other languages. But there's never a point, Cloud Doctor, where you're in a program where you can't reach out to an instructor in our Slack community or attend one of the office hour sessions, ask questions in class, and become great. Because we want everybody to be great.
Yeah, the community is what truly makes and breaks everything. We have a wonderful community. It's diverse as it can be, from languages to people to experiences. Just post your message when you have it. People will get back to you. As Mike said, we always recommend the live classes only because interaction is going to build you up. There's a saying, iron sharpens iron. And that's where you want to be. You want to practice. You want to get your competency up. And that's what live sessions do well. Next question from Visual Multimedia. Would you say you need a lot of passion for career in tech, or is that something that can grow over time?
Okay, I'm going to answer this. But if you've got questions, please pop them in the chat box. We want to assist you in your career. And don't be shy. Visuals Multimedia, you need a lot of passion for any career. You know, my wife, who's got 170 IQ, she's a super genius. You know, she says this is the decade of apathy. Because so many places when you walk into a store, you ask a question, nobody has an answer for you that's any good. It's like they don't know, they're disconnected. So visual media, if you don't have passion in your job, and I don't care what job it is, somebody will replace you with someone that does have passion for the job. I don't care if you are a video editor. If you don't love what you do, the company will find a new video editor that loves what you do. If you're an engineer and you're not passionate about your job and you're not energy enthusiastic and passionate, you're laid off, and the company will the next day hire someone that's there. If you're a not passionate doctor and you're a burned out doctor, the hospital will replace you and they'll hire someone. So you need passion for anything. We're now in a world where the world is global. I don't need to hire somebody in California. There's no reason. If I'm going to have an office in California, I could hire a person that's got the skill, assuming it's not a role that has to be customer facing, in Cambodia, Cameroon, Cape Town, the Cayman Islands, or Camp Lejeune. What do I care? And yes, I like to alliterate. I used to watch the Cookie Monster when I was younger from Sesame Street. And I like words that begin with C. But the point is it doesn't matter where you're at. And we're now competing in a global world. I hire people with passion. Now, visuals, media, multimedia, I got to tell you, I've interviewed 6,000 people over the years. And I've hired people that had absolutely no skill because they had passion, energy, enthusiasm for work. And I've interviewed people that had plenty of skill that looked like they needed a nap. And I said, thank you, but it was nice to meet you. Take care. Because I can't hire anybody without passion. Now, to be fair, if I was going to hire someone to clean my house and they didn't look like they wanted to do it, I wouldn't hire them. If I was going to hire somebody to fix my roof and they looked like a burned out zombie, I'm not going to hire them. And I'm using that to make a point. If I want to hire an architect, I want someone that's passionate. I want a graphic artist, I want someone that's passionate. So if we look at what employers want, visuals, multimedia, I've surveyed thousands of employers, and here's what they said. We're looking for people that can do the job and do it well. That's your ability to do the job, not your experience. It's your competency. They're looking for people that communicate. And why does communication matter? Well, poor communication equals arguments. Arguments equals zero productivity and nothing good. But it's also, if you get things wrong with poor communication, you make errors. The next thing people tell me is they're looking for someone that knows what they know and knows what they don't know. Because I don't care what job you're in, you can't know everything. And if you do things you don't know, you cause damage, which is a problem. Now, the next thing that comes in is energy, enthusiasm, and passion. That is on every hiring manager's wish list. And if we don't see it, we can't hire. There are your people on TikTok that are quiet quitting. These are the people that are getting laid off at these companies. Because companies don't lay off their best and brightest, they lay off their bottom 10%, which are the people that lack passion, energy, enthusiasm, and typically competency for do the job. All employers stack rank their employees. Top 10% promoted, bottom 10% laid off, and that people in between they're just sort of there. So kind of keep that in your mind doing the job. Now, beyond that, they're looking for people that are willing to go above and beyond. Wait, that's passion again. They're looking for people that are emotionally intelligent and can bring out the best in others. And that, well, emotional intelligence can also tie back into a little passion there as well. And they're looking for people that go above and beyond. Passion. So, yeah, you're going to have passion for any job you want. And if you're not passionate about a job, learn a new one. And that's the key. You've got to do what you love, which is when people say, which career should I do? I say, what do you want to do? There's no starting point. I mean, people have it in their mind that they're going to start in the mailroom. And after they work in the mailroom, they're going to be a sysadmin. And then somebody's going to give them an engineer job. And then they're miraculously going to have an architect job. Well, that's really like saying I worked as an airplane mechanic, so I'm going to get promoted as a flight attendant. And then because I've been a flight attendant for years, somebody's going to make me the pilot and fly the plane. They're different skills. So what I would say visuals multimedia is, what is it you love? Find what you love. Me, I like solving people's problems. I went to school for healthcare, but I found tech was more fun for me to solve than their sicknesses. So, I moved into tech. But you got to do what you love. And if you don't love it, it's going to be work. We spend more hours working than any other part of our lives. Because if we work 9 hours a day, which is pretty standard for any professional job, and then we commute an hour a day, that's 10 hours. Now, if we sleep 8, 10 plus 8 is 18. We've only got 6 hours to ourselves. So if you live a job where you hate it and you're only good for 6 hours, you're going to be miserable. I worked in healthcare. To be fair, I liked it. I did. But when I got home, I didn't feel fulfilled. I felt exhausted and tired. And then I went into tech. And I don't think I've ever worked a day in my life. Sure, I put in some long hours. Sure, I used to travel 250,000 miles a year to go visit my clients. But I loved it. I mean, people paid me to talk to people, to give presentations, to take my clients to dinner, to learn about their business goals, business pain points, and challenges. And I got paid for it. I mean, they literally paid me to do something that was fun. And they paid me enough that I could live in Princeton, New Jersey, and have a house in Palm Beach and another vacation home in Greece. And part of that was because, architects get paid real well. But the other half of it is because I loved it. And because I loved it so much, when I'd be at work and they'd say, okay, you team of architects, we got a project, who wants it? Me, give it to me, because I was always excited for the new opportunity. So when other people are saying, learn how to say no, I learned how to say yes. And when you can say yes, and you volunteer for these new, big, scary, exciting things because you love it, you learn, you become great. And when you do what you love, you never work. And it's the best feeling in the world. So I'd say you need to be passionate for any job. Tech, not tech. And if you don't love it, it's probably not interesting or the right one for you. How about you, Mark?
We as human beings, we are wonderful creatures. We are adaptable, and we can grow and we can destroy almost anything. And the reason I say that is there's many people that they start off in any type of field sometimes without any type of understanding, and they hate it.
Yeah.
As they grow in their understanding and they start finding a taste for what they're doing, they start to enjoy it. Once they start enjoying it, they start seeing the fruits of their labors, the application of it. And it could be helping a customer find a solution. It could be just the excitement of finally being able to figure out how does the spanning tree protocol work. Then I finally got rid of the loops in my network, and the excitement grows. The next thing you know, now you're moving into more of like an obsessive type of behavior. And then once you get past the obsessive type of behavior, because you can't get enough of it, right? You want to keep taking and taking and taking in knowledge. Now you grow your passion. You cultivated it. And that's what I say you can do with passion as well. Just because you don't start off with passion doesn't matter. It doesn't mean it can't grow over time. We see the same thing with young babies and their taste. They might try the lemon at first and they squint their eyes. It's so sour. And what do they do next? They taste a little bit more and a little bit more, a little bit more. They get used to it. The taste buds, they get excited. They look forward to it. So I would definitely say if you cultivate it and you maintain it, passion can grow over time. But you also need to keep in mind, if you're in the wrong environment, around the wrong people, if you even have, let's say you're trying to gain a skill, you have the wrong training for that skill, you can decimate your passion to the point where it will never come back and you will have to move on and do something else. So find the right training, find the right place that you want to be. If you have a natural inclination, like Mike loved helping people.
Yeah.
He could have gone into almost anything, but then he got a little taste of tech. And then eventually found out I can get paid for it. I can get paid and help people. And it grew into a much larger passion. And that can apply to anyone and anything. So definitely, if you don't have the passion at first, don't be afraid. It can grow as long as you put the time and effort towards it in cultivating it. That's what I would say.
And you know, Mark, I agree with you. Mark, you reminded me of something else. I knew I loved networking when I started. Why? Because I used to lock myself in a room playing with networking.
Mm-hmm.
I then took a CCNP boot camp, and I hated it. And the reason I hated it was the instructor that was teaching the class didn't really understand networking. He knew how to configure this stuff, but when I asked questions about how it worked, there was nothing there, and it was just config t int GE0/0, no shut IP ADDR, and put a number, router OSPF1, and I said, okay, so what are we doing here? We're configuring it. I'm like, well, what are we configuring? Well, we're configuring it, and I'm like, well, how does this thing work? You don't need to know that. You need to know how to configure it. And I was like, I was miserable. But if you have a good instructor, someone that understands something, it won't give you that tech headache. I like to call it the tech headache. The tech headache is when you listen to someone that doesn't know it, and what you hear is blah, 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 blah. And it was kind of like in Peanuts or Snoopy when they were on the phone and you're wah, 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 wah. Mm-hmm. And if you're being trained by that, like in a certification, and in certifications, they make a point of not teaching you what you need to know, only how the how-to, you may actually like it and not know. So if you're being taught by an industry leader and you're still not there, then it may not be the thing that's your best. But if you really understand it and you'll like it, it'll be there.
I agree with you, Mike. Just a little personal experience for everybody. I recall when in college, I picked up networking as my major because people were telling me it was cool. I had zero interest in it. I just thought it was cool. They were paying well. I started getting into it. And I don't think I've told this story. So again, this goes in line with you can grow something, but you can also decimate the passion. I got to the OSI model, and I'm laughing today about this. I didn't know if it was me, if I wasn't ready, or if it was the instructor. It was such a train wreck for me, learning about the OSI model. What are you trying to learn me about? Nobody throws sausage pizza away. Why should I care about a network layer? And then you're telling me there's a TCP/IP model. It turned me off so much the way it came across to me, networking, that I left that field for over 10 years. I think actually 15. That's how much it crushed any interest, any type of passion I could have grown. And then I got into a field, I met the right people, I saw what it could do. It resonated with me, and I did a total 180, and the passion just grew from there. But that is something that it took me almost 15 years to reignite. So you got to be very careful. Like Mike said, sometimes it could be just the instructor. Sometimes you might find yourself not being ready for it. And that's an important part of it too. If you're not ready to work, put the hustle in, learn these things, go above and beyond, especially in the beginning, that learning curve is going to be very steep and you're going to be discouraged. You can become frustrated. You can drop it. Again, I know what it feels like, but I caution, do not give up. If you do find yourself, even with a fantastic instructor that you connect with, and it still doesn't do anything for you, then it might be time to move on. So, but don't give up. It might only take 15 years. Great question.
Yeah.
So from Mohammed, welcome back, Mohammed. Hope you're doing well. It says, transitioning from engineering to architect thinker. How would you evolve it?
Well, you have to think from the how-to, which is what an engineer does, which is how to build, to what is the goal and what are all the pieces and parts and components that go into that goal. And then what we use, it's all going to be an issue of trade-offs. Every decision we make is going to help something and hurt something. So I add new security in. Great, I added security. But if I add too much security, the people are going to find ways to violate the security. Maybe I have passwords that need to be 30 characters in length. So now I'm going to have sticky notes that sit on my computer. Or now I'm going to implement something new and somebody else is going to find a workaround for it if we make it too complicated. So we have to think about everything. I have this new security thing. It may protect this. How much do we spend on protecting it? What is the value of the asset that we're protecting? It's not how do we do the tech, it's what do we do? I've got a company that wants to go to the cloud. Great. Why do they want to go to the cloud? What are they trying to achieve? What do they have that's working right now versus what are they going and what benefits will it give them? Now, if they're going for the wrong reasons, it's our job to advise them, it's not going to save you money to go to the cloud. It's going to cost you more. And if they're like, what? Then you build a business case around them and say, if we took your data center and put that into a private cloud like a Nutanix cloud, we can give you all those functions as a service. We can give all that simplicity, all that auto scaling, all the ability to add and to remove capacity on demand at better performance and potentially a third of the cost. But we have to know the why and the how. So, it's about the business impact. When I was younger, people were saying, you can hear this from engineers, compare and contrast the LLMs. That's an engineering thing. The architecture thing is, what's the business goal? What pain point do we have? Are we an airline? Are we trying to determine when and where to buy a fuel option price to hedge against inflation, etc.? And if so, we need to understand the airline's business and understand all those impacts and all those forces, whether they be production cuts, whether they be supply and demand curves, whether they be geopolitical risks. And as architects, we need to think about all this stuff and how these are there. And then we need to think about an architecture that could mitigate that or grow with it or scale with it or optimize it. So you're going to have to be trained. Nobody goes from a nurse to a doctor without going to medical school. So it's about getting that training. I was initially taught how to be an engineer. But the good news for me was I had better training for architecture. I went to learn how to prescribe healthcare. And, the engineering was a lot like I did as a nurse before I became a nurse practitioner. And when I was a nurse, I was at the ER in the hospital. The doctor would say, titrate a nitro drip to a systolic BP of 90. And I'd go there and I'd sit there on the IV pump and I'd be like, okay, let's go up 3 mics. Let's recheck their blood pressure. Let's go up another 3 mics. Let's go check their blood pressure. And I would do that. And I learned how to. And then I was a doctor, and then all of a sudden they're a nurse practitioner versus an architect role. It's the exact role as the architect. And it's like, well, what medication should I give this person? Should I give them a nitro drip? If I give them a nitro drip, that helps with blood vessel dilation, more blood to the heart. Is the nitro drip enough? Should I also give the nitro drip with a little morphine? Should I give the nitro drip with some morphine with a beta blocker? If I do those 3 things, what does that do, and how does that impact the patient's care? And then what do the nurses need to do to find a way? So you have to be trained. It's not just going to be something that's just going to happen to you overnight. To go from a flight attendant to an airplane pilot, you got to go to flight school. So you got to learn how to evolve it, and you're going to have to basically have someone coach you through it. And I've got my engineers, and I was just earlier today, I've got a rock star engineer. He just did his architecture presentations. This guy has 20 years experience. And as he gave the presentation, he got 3 minutes into the presentation, and it had nothing to do with architecture. And I asked him, how many years have you been an engineer? I didn't know the student because he was new. And he said, 20. And I said, okay, now let's get rid of all that engineering and let's take it from here, 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 and here. And I got to tell you, Mohammed, sometimes the hardest part of becoming an architect, if you've been an engineer, is to change your thinking. You have to go from how to why. You have to go to, if we do this, it's going to give us this, to if we do this, what is the impact on every other part of the system? Going from thinking about the tech to thinking about the business. And it's best understood if you're going to be there. And it's best understood to understand the role is to be taught, to learn, to know by somebody who's actually done the job. So there's that. Mark, you made the transition from an engineer to an architect. How hard was that for you?
You know what? It's a struggle every day. And I tell you why. You draw back to what you feel the most comfortable with. And I always say tech in itself. So if you look at a protocol, a program, the way it's supposed to function, it doesn't matter if it's a routing protocol, if it's a switching protocol, if it's an application or data protocol, whatever it may be. Somebody came up with rules that govern that protocol. You can learn those rules because they're written down in black and white. They'll tell you what are the repercussions of what happens, right? Mike and I would always talk about BGP and going through the finite state machine and as to why there's these different states and how they're supposed to function. That's the beauty about an actual protocol. You can learn it. It's black and white. Architecture or design work is a lot more free-flowing. There's so many different variables to consider. You have to be curious. You have to ask a bunch of questions. Just simply saying is, how do I implement something? How do I program it onto the command line?
Yeah.
You have to go above that because you're not just solving a problem anymore when it comes to the actual application of the tech. You're now trying to figure out, how do I apply the tech towards something specific the business requires? And that takes a whole different meaning to what type of mindset you need to have, because it's a lot more broad compared to being laser focused on one single task that you need to do. So if you started off in engineering, which I'm not trying to dissuade anyone like yourself, Mohammed, or anyone else, it's a little bit more of an uphill battle, and you have to continually, through your career, until eventually you can phase this out, be always ultra aware, be ultra sensitive in case you fall back to it. Because again, going back to what we said, you grow your passion. You're going to be passionate about technology first, about how it works, why it works that way. You've got to grow beyond that passion and now reapply it towards the customer, towards the business. What can it do for them, instead of, can I get geeky with it? Do I get fired up with it? How does it actually work? So that's always been a challenge for me. I always have to catch myself, but I tell you what, you will find pleasure in both. And as you get through that threshold, you keep moving forward and forward, it does become easier. It definitely has been for me over the years.
Yeah.
And that's how you have to evolve it. Evolve it from just the how, from the tech, to eventually why for the tech, to how for the business, and then ultimately why for the business. And if you can do that, it's going to take training, like Mike said. Nobody is born with that. Any person who's ever designed anything will tell you that. Get trained, and it's going to help you evolve towards that type of mindset.
Yeah.
Wonderful question. Thank you for that, Mohammed. Appreciate it. From Nick Love, what are the best ways to find a good recruiter?
Nick Love, that's a great question. And, a good recruiter is worth their weight in gold, diamonds, and platinum. And the average recruiter is kind of a train wreck. But it's like anything else. There's always going to be a small number of people that are excellent at what they do, and the average is going to be just mediocre. So over time, Nick, you're going to build your own recruiter network. Like I know right now, if I'm looking for something, I either call Korn Ferry International. There's somebody over there for jobs that pay $300,000 to $1 million a year. And for jobs that are $250,000 to $500,000 that are more technical oriented, I call Christina Marino over at ITXL. Done. That's it. Because that's my network. And I've got somebody that I would call in both places. Now, when I was new, how did I find the best recruiters? I used references. And in today's world, you can actually create content. And here's what I mean. If you were to go out there and create some real, legitimate documents on LinkedIn. Managers look at LinkedIn all day and recruiters look at LinkedIn. If I create a real document, Nick, I get 10 recruiters that reach out to me that day and say, Mike, let's talk. What job do you want? So let's talk about the difference between good content and what everybody else puts out there. If ChatGPT wrote it, you literally showed the employers never to hire you, because if you don't have a position and you're too lazy to create the content yourself, nobody's going to hire a lazy person without a perspective. Now, the next thing that I don't want anybody to do on LinkedIn is I set up a WordPress website, look at me. Because what they're really doing is they're showing I did something that like a 6-year-old could do and hire me because I can do a 6-year-old skills. Well, let's face it, nobody's going to hire you for that either. Now, for example, if you were to create content around why zero trust isn't enough for security and defense in depth isn't enough security, and why it might take a hybrid of both to provide good, great enterprise security. And not only do you talk about, what is security, why we need security, and the strengths of zero trust and the strengths and weaknesses of defense in depth, and you have an analysis, and then you talk about how to put them together, and you've got some financial metrics, and you've got some leadership metrics, and you've got some industry examples and case studies that are popped into there. Now you're in the top 1%, and the world will come to you because they see you as a solution provider. I set up a Terraform script, and it's like, okay, run along, little child, because it's a how-to. And nobody's interested in your how to do anything that's basic and simple. There's great documentation on Terraform on how to set up Terraform. Here's how I set up a web page in Linux. That's ridiculous. I can go over to the Ubuntu page and sudo apt install httpd or something like that. I mean, it's pretty easy. You're not going to write something on that, but it's out there going there. It's looking at the industry. It's looking at the industry's challenges. It's going out there and creating things. It's also going out there and looking at people that are on LinkedIn. And when you see recruiters that are posting good content, real content, commenting on their posts for a period of time, and then potentially sending a request. I saw what you did here. I'd like to be able to follow your stuff more closely. And then they make a post, and then you comment on the post, and then it's back. Then maybe one day you offer to do something for somebody. And now you've got a relationship. And then after that, you could say, I see you posted this. I've been following your content. You've done this, this, and this, and this really well. Can we talk? I might be someone that you could work with. And it's there. It's kind of the exact opposite of every day. And I just stopped accepting them. Anybody with a CEO or CEO title sends me a message each day, and I used to accept it. And then 5 minutes later, it's a spam. I want to sell you something. And I'm like, well, you're not a CEO if you're trying to do sales. And if you have to spam me to sell me something, you must be so bad that product you don't need to spam people. People can sign up for the list. So I hope that makes sense to you. So go out there, create something, build real relationships, comment on what people did well, comment on what people didn't do, Be polite at all points. Don't comment on what people didn't do well. Create some insights. Create some content. Document it right. Make it look presentable. Have good pictures. Have good citations. Show you as the executive leader that you are. Nick, I know you're a pretty rock solid guy, but that's really what we're talking about. If you're going to apply for elite roles and you want to build an elite brand, everything you need to do needs to be elite. If you're going to go out there and create an elite brand and then you want to work at My Family Diner making gyros and souvlaki and Greek salads, you're probably not going to show up in an Armani suit. But if you're going to be an architect and you're going to go present to the boardroom, you probably do need that Armani suit. And you need your shoes to be polished. And you need your belt to be polished. And you need all your hairs, whatever ones you have or don't have, to be in the appropriate place. And you need to be well groomed. And you can't be what my mother would call wrinkled. You can't be wrinkled up, that kind of thing. Hope that makes sense, Nick. Before we get to the next question, if you've got a question, ask them. Otherwise, Mark and I are going to go back to work. While we wait for you to ask a question, please letting you know, tomorrow, Mark and I, two CCIE network architects, are going to get a little geeky. It's fun to get a little geeky. We architects never get to get geeky. We're going to go out there and do a completely free subnetting workshop in a week or so. Also, we're going to do a BGP workshop. We're going to do some AWS advanced networking, and it's all free. So sign up to get on any of our lists, and you'll learn about it. Join us tomorrow on the free subnetting workshop. Do take advantage of our 50% off, intro pricing on our AI Architect program. It'll change your life. And I highly recommend it. It's the program I'm most excited about in a long time. Between our Cloud Architect program, our Enterprise Architect program, which I love, and our AI Architect program, I'm excited. Go out there and change your life.
Be curious. I always say, be curious, ask questions, get more information, make a good decision. And that's how you build your brand, you build your passion, you build your career. Don't ever be shy of asking questions. I personally never believe in stupid questions. I believe in actually stupid answers. But how else are you going to learn if you don't ask questions? That's how actually you gather materials also from your customers, right? You got to ask them questions. You got to draw them out. You can't do that if you're going to be a mute.
Yep.
So anyway, bring us your questions. From Visual Multimedia, as a beginner, what are some red flags I should look out for when picking an instructor to teach me cloud?
Visual Multimedia, great question. And I have to tell you, 50% of the people that have cloud courses out there have come to us and asked for help to learn the cloud as the career themselves. So here's what you should look for. If the only thing they've done is created a course, forget it. If it's on Udemy, I'd probably skip it as well, because nobody that's really a good architect is going to post their content there. You should look for someone that's actually worked for one of these companies: IBM, Accenture, Deloitte, KPMG, Capgemini, Cisco, Microsoft. One of the big and best tech elite companies in the world. You should look for someone that has had a role of principal architect or higher. And why do I say this, Visual Media? Lots of people will get their first architect job. They don't know what they don't know. As a senior solution architect, a lot of people we train, that's their first job. So while they're great architects because we train them, they still don't know what they don't know. When you've reached that principal architect level or above, you've made it. You've been successful. And why have you made it? You've done the right things for a long enough period of time. So as it really stands, I only know of 3 people right now that teach anything in cloud computing that are there. Me. I was a principal architect in 2 years, and I've got 20 years plus experience past that. David Lithicum. And there's a guy named John Sarville at Microsoft that teaches Microsoft stuff. He doesn't teach cloud stuff. He just teaches Microsoft cloud stuff. But he's a legitimate, real architect that works for Microsoft. Any of the 3 of us can teach you things that you need. We've been there. We've done it. We've made people successful. Anybody that said last year or 5 years from now, I was in a dead-end job, run away. They don't know what they don't know. Anybody that just worked at some cloud training academy where they're teaching hands-on engineering skills, run. They have absolutely no idea. There's also some AWS interns that couldn't even finish their internship that have YouTube channels and training materials out there. And they're giving career advice when they never had a career on their own. Run. So I would look for someone that was principal architect or higher for architecture careers, and I would look for principal engineer or higher for engineering careers, because again, they're separate. I would look for people that have real experience at real companies. You can be a principal architect in a 2-person company. If the person that's teaching cloud created their own cloud architect job at their own company, it's there. If you look at someone's LinkedIn profile and they're an architect, and I see so many architects that have never done any architecture in my entire life, it's a fake job. I see fake resumes, but that's what I'd look for. I'd look for someone that's got 5 to 50 years experience and at minimum level of principal architect. And that way you're going to learn. And if it's engineering, you want principal engineering because you want the people that have made it. You want the people that are best. Like you ask Mark about networking. Mark can give you an answer in such a level of depth or simplicity because he understands it. Now, I know what's in Mark's head. And, the level of networking that he can teach, you'll see how easy he and I are going to make subnetting. But we're going to make it as easy as it can be. It's not an easy concept. But if I ask Mark to talk about LSAs and OSPF, which is a fairly complicated topic, he can do it in a manner that's I'm going to understand it because he knows it well enough to explain it simply. Einstein said, if you can't explain it simply, you don't know it well enough. And pretty much 99% of the people that are out there, what you hear is blah, 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 blah. But if you find an architect that's a principal architect for architecture or a principal engineer for engineering careers, because you don't want to learn from an architect for engineering, and you shouldn't want to learn engineering from an architect, vice versa, because it's a different skill. That's really what you're looking. So those are what you're looking for. But a lot of places they just hire a newbie. They've never worked in tech. They've never worked in the field. And when you don't know what you don't know, you just honestly have no idea how to help people to get to their goals. And that's the secret. The secret is being great so you can help others. Having the skill so you can help others. Loving the field so you can convey it in a manner of with energy, enthusiasm, and passion. And being able to bring it to real world. Being able to do real world things with your clients. Like we teach architecture, right? So what do our clients do? Architecture. I'm not having them do engineering. I mean, sometimes I let them do some engineering products because it makes them feel good and it's fun and it's exciting to build it. But you don't learn how to fly an airplane by fixing the engine. You learn an airplane by spending some time in the cockpit. You learn how to fly an airplane by learning vectors, by learning wind directions and angles and realize where the plane's going to fail, by learning airspeed and wind speed and the degree of an angle. Because like, for example, if the wind's coming at you at a 45-degree angle, the pilot would need to know that that's the sine of the 45-degree angle, which is going to be 0.707 versus 90% or half. It's you got to be able to look at those things. And that's really the secret. You got to be taught by an expert, someone that knows it, someone that lives it, someone that eats it, someone that breathes it, and someone that sleeps it. Any thoughts for you, Mark, here?
Definitely. I'm going to go a little bit beyond the credentials because I always think of school. When we all were in school, there were some teachers, bless their heart, the information was great. But if you could have run out of the classroom anytime they opened their mouth, you would have done it if you weren't a punch for it. Maybe you look up when they start talking, nothing rings true to you. It's like what Mike says, blah, 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 blah. It just goes in there. But do you remember that one teacher? As soon as they started talking, they grabbed your attention.
Yep.
All of a sudden you prepped up, you looked at them like, wow, same material. But there was something that got you to connect with that person. So I would say for me, if I don't want to learn from that person, they can have 150 years of experience. It won't matter. So I would say once you have vetted a person and they got good credentials, at least the ones that you find are appropriate. We given you some criteria. See if you connect with them. See if you're willing to listen to them. Because think about this, even though you and I, we're doing this remotely right now. You guys are watching us through a camera, right? Packets being switched and routed. If we don't connect, if you don't find us to be able to listen to us for 2, 3, 4 hours, right? Because sometimes we're going to invest a lot of time together. We're going to build a relationship. It doesn't matter what our credentials are. So I would say is one huge red flag for me is if I don't want to listen to the person, if they thoroughly annoy me, meaning I can't wait to jump out of, run out of the room, find another instructor. Even if that means if they have a year or two less, whatever they need, because it is in your best interest to want to pay attention to them. Now, it could be for any which way, right? Like I mentioned with my experience, the instructor I had, I couldn't get away from networking fast enough. It took 10, 15 years for me to come back. And then next thing you know, same material. The OSI model didn't change 15, 20 years. It didn't change. But it was the person that was teaching me. There was something about them that just instantly clicked with me. I was hooked listening to them. So find a person like that you're willing to build a relationship with, invest the time with them, because like we mentioned, 700 hours of course content. You're not going to go through that if you don't enjoy listening to the person. You don't feel like you're getting value, and those are just the on-demand classes. What about the minimum of 3 days a week that we have classes too? Again, anywhere from an hour and a half to 2 hours, sometimes a little bit more. So find somebody you're willing to listen to, that you can grow in a relationship with. And if you can match both the credentials and somebody you can stand, that you connect with, that is the right instructor.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. Great question.
Really great question. And that's why Mark and I have different perspectives. We've been in the world differently. And I love that.
And, yeah, we all have different training, right? I mean, for example, when Mike did his CCIE, there wasn't a lot of training out there when it came to like on-demand video training or boot camps or workshops or whatever you may call them. It just didn't exist. I had a little bit more pick of a litter, right? There was a lot more remote kind of virtual type of training. I came across instructors. You could tell they knew their stuff. They were great at what they were doing. But I couldn't wait until I could just turn them off, mute them. I'd rather mute them and just watch them than listen to them. So it is quite important. I always look at it, it's the same way when you're hiring somebody. It's the same idea. You can hire a rock star. They can be the best of the best of the best, right? But if you can't stand them, if you don't see yourself being able to work with them, isn't it funny how logic takes a back seat and you go like, you know what? I know this guy has everything I want, but I can't wait to show up to the elevator with security to get rid of him. So that's definitely, that's why Mike and I, we love having these type of discussions, seeing the different perspective of things, especially as they evolve. So again, you got to ask questions. You got to be curious, find out the things so that you can make an informed decision.
Absolutely. So let's talk about a few things as we close up for the day. Tomorrow is the last day to get 50% off of our Generative AI Architect program. Please take advantage of it now. Without fail, the day after it's over, we're going to get 100 emails of people that want it, and we can't do the sale after the sale because it's not fair to charge different prices to different people. It's just not ethical or appropriate. So it's going to end tomorrow, so please take advantage of it. I'd rather you all take advantage of it now versus later, so please just sign up. Tomorrow, Mark and I, we're going to have some fun. We're going to host a 4-hour workshop or so covering subnetting and what it means to you and your career and how to do it. It'll be all kinds of fun. We're going to get geeky, Mark and I. Mark's going to get out his fancy slides that I created. I'm going to go be me. We really want to help you, and it's completely free, so sign up. And then on Thursday, we got you how to get your first cloud architect job webinar. Join us on Thursday. We'll talk about the architectural role. We'll talk about what hiring managers are actually looking for. We'll talk about how to skip those HR people that'll auto-reject you when you apply for a role and you don't have the perfect level of experience. We'll cover every skill that you need to learn. And guess what? It's on Zoom, so you can ask questions. And we'll spend upwards of an hour and a half offering free career consulting. You got goals, and the quality of the information we get determines how good we can help you. And we'll be answering your questions, having full dialogues, and it's free. So go take advantage of it. So I had fun meeting you guys this afternoon. Mark, you had fun?
Oh, I always love these sessions, to be able to hear what questions people have, to be able to guide them. We have said it before. We wish we had a platform of people that are willing to give us information, that help us find the right course, or at least I would have been happy if somebody just pointed me into the right direction. I would have taken it. So I love these things, Mike, to be honest.
Me too. So take care, everybody. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe, hit the bell, like the video, all those kind of things, so you'll get access to more content like this. Take care, everyone.